Hello class, this is my video about study number 4 for Agarwal automobiles. So the first question is about selecting the proper framework for forecasting for your company. So the first part of the question is asking what type of the Kenneth Kahn framework would be the best choice for Agarwal to utilize as they're trying to predict the sale of their fossil fuels in order to reduce their inventory costs. So the strategy that would be best for them would be the market penetration framework, since their product and market are both existing. They both have a long history, especially sales in India already within their company has already grown to a significant degree. So since they're not trying to enter a new market or generate a new product, this style framework is probably the best utilization for them. So they can utilize just time series or regression methodologies based on their historical data in order to try to predict the future based mostly on those past results, as well as any other available data sources they might have on their market. And the second part of the question is how many, other companies that should consider using different frameworks from Agarwal. And I've listed two companies here, one being Apple and one being Tesla. Apple's style of framework that might benefit them would be the product development framework. And this is because the products they are trying to develop are new, not always necessarily existing. However, they are usually entering a market that is existing, so trying to uh, complete technological sales in the public society right now. Everyone has an iPhone, and most people have computers, so the market is already existing, but they are trying to continue to develop products to maintain their competitive advantage. The second company is Tesla, and I think they should utilize the market development strategy for forecasting framework. And this is because they have a product which is a vehicle, which is already existing product. However, the market for the vehicle is an electric vehicle market rather than a gas-powered vehicle. So vehicle sales have the long history across the globe, so that uh, market is already established. However, the product is different. Um, however, the product itself is still a vehicle, so it's not necessarily like a foreign thing. We already people are buying vehicles every day, so it's more so trying to develop the knowledge of how the market will react to increasing availability of electric vehicles and how the consumers view the electric vehicle market. The next question is about explaining the calculations for selecting a forecasting model for each fuel type for Agarwal. So they're selling three different types of fuel: petrol, diesel, and high-speed petrol. And the demand structure for each of these fuels is slightly different. So for this exercise, we were utilizing different forecasting methods through Excel to predict what the percent error would be of each of these models in order to see what might be the best model of best fit for each of these products. So from my calculations from the photo you can see on the right, for petrol, I would select a 14-day moving average, which utilized ended up with the lowest MAPE. And then diesel also was moving average was also a good model, but a 21-day moving average was even lower than 14-day for diesel, so I would utilize that. And then for high-speed petrol, I would utilize um, the exponential smoothing with an alpha of 0.75 for daily data. However, in the triple exponential smoothing exercise, we actually were utilizing monthly data, and that model was actually much more effective at lowering the MAPE for high-speed petroleum. As you can see, it's all the way down to 10% error, which is a huge uh, it's much better from the 40 50% errors we were seeing from the daily data. So looking through these different models, there was some seasonality shown in the diesel sales, which can be taken into account with the triple exponential smoothing forecasting tool. So the other models that we were looking at don't really take into account anything other than just the historical data itself rather than any sort of trends in the data. So it's interesting to point out that triple exponential smoothing can look at seasonality a little more closely. Also, um, if I were to have to choose a model that best suits all three, if you were in a situation where you had to pick one to utilize for all three, I would still select a short-term moving average because it does yield a decent MAPE in the scope of all the models we've looked at here for all three fuels. So you could utilize a 7 to 21 day short-term average to keep pretty good error percentage for each fuel. And the last thing I wanted to note here was that there is a very high percent error for diesel and HSP. I think over 20% and 40% is very significant. So I think, and actually I don't work in forecasting, but I would assume that those numbers would be pretty high, and you'd want to continue to look at more forecasting models or try to change the model structure in order to get that MAPE down, whether that's changing the type of time frame instead of doing daily data, moving to monthly or what that may be. But those percent errors look really high to me, so I think more exploration might be needed there. And the last question for this case study was asking about uh, looking into other factors that may be impacting forecast in the short and long term that could cause more, percent error and deviations from the forecasted models. And we wanted to discuss some potential impacts that these factors could have. So for short term, I had two things I wanted to note. One was just seasonality, as we've already talked about quite a bit, but maybe specifically for holidays. So I don't know, India probably has a lot of different types of holidays. I think India is actually split up into different states, so the culture can be kind of different, I think, across the country. So you could probably break down their demand structure a little bit more specifically in terms of seasonality or in terms of geographical location, and also, yeah, based on holidays, off days, celebrations, things like that, where people are traveling or utilizing more fuel. Another short-term impact would be weather. So I think probably uh, petrol and fuel sales would probably be correlated somewhat with the having nice weather. So I know when we have a lot of really poor weather or really severe weather events, there's not going to be as many people wanting to travel. So could be impacting the fuel sales there in the short term. In the long term, there's a lot of different factors that we can talk about, but I've listed several here. One is the economy of India. So if the economy is struggling, people have less money in their pocket to spend. They're going to be want to utilize fuel as little as possible. They're going to be doing less traveling. That probably also means less car sales, so more public transportation or walking, biking to your workplace in the instances of poor economy. So definitely something that they should be looking into and trying to project for the future for India for Agarwal. Second is the agriculture and manufacturing industry specifically. So I think these two industries are probably some two big users of fuels, and how these industries are doing, even if the economy is doing well, if these industries are not doing great, it could be a negative impact. And the opposite, as they expand their work, it will probably lead to an increase in fuel sales as well. Next is electric vehicles. So obviously the growth of the electric vehicle market is slowly starting to build, and I think we'll probably see some exponential increase over the next 10 to 20 years. So this definitely will erode the share of fossil fuels. So if you can diversify your portfolio for Agarwal to try to get into some electric vehicle charging stations or something like that in the future, I think that may be an opportunity to reap a little bit excess revenue and in order to cut down on that profit erosion. And then lastly, it's just competition, as we've already mentioned, and it was mentioned in the case study. More and more competitors opening fuel stations will slowly erode the market share for Agarwal, so they need to figure out the best way to remain competitive by utilizing on-time demand structure and delivery structure for inventory, as well as trying to understand the geographical location and trends of that nature across India and where they and place their fuel stations. So, thank you.